I'm Nicholas Bornoz of Capital Link, and I would like to welcome you to the second day of our Capital Link Operational Excellence in Shipping Forum. Today's sessions are going to focus to a large extent on one of the most critical topics in shipping, about safety. We have been discussing about so many other topics, decarbonization, the human factor, operational efficiencies, and so on. But at the end of the day, safety is the cornerstone of shipping. And we are going to dedicate a very good portion of today's sessions on this particular topic on safety first. We are privileged to have with us a distinguished group of panelists who are all together supporting the effort to change the world, and the industry is thinking about safety. But first, we're going to hear the keynote introductory remarks from Grahaeme Henderson of Shell Shipping and Trading. And after Grahame's introductory remarks, we will proceed with the panel. I would like to thank Grahaeme and of course the panelists, and I will do so after the video. Let's proceed with the video.
It is wonderful to be with you all and a great pleasure to be opening the conference today. I'm going to talk about the most important subject for me and for you and for your business, and that is safety. I will start by explaining why safety is so important and why it must be at the center of everything that we all do. In my mind, there are three reasons. They are firstly the statistical reason, secondly the business reason, and thirdly, well, what I'll call the real reason. Starting with the statistical reason. If we look broadly at global shipping, it has one of the worst safety performances of any industry worldwide. A UK study showed that being on a ship, you're 5 times more likely to have a fatal accident than working in construction. Shipping also has a suicide rate that is 6 times worse than that of the UK population, and maybe even up to 15 times worse if you also include suspicious cases. But these are not just numbers. They refer to people, our people. And all of us in the shipping industry need to be part of the solution. The second reason as to why safety is so important to us all is the business reason. If you have an accident, it will cost you dearly in terms of both the direct and indirect costs. Even if you're insured, you will not get all your money back by a wide margin. There are also the things you cannot be repaid for, like the cost of delays whilst investigations are happening, loss of revenue, compensation costs, your and your people's time, the cost of the reputation of your company, your personal reputation. But just think that if you have a great safety performance and show that you care for your people, they will be motivated to do a great job for you. They'll speak highly of your company. They'll speak highly of you. So we have the statistical reason and the business reason. Very compelling. But what is the real reason? I've worked for Shell in frontline operational roles in the UK, Nigeria, Syria, and twice in Brunei. It is those experiences that have brought home to me just how precious life is. I experienced many, many happy times, but also, I'm sad to say, some terrible accidents in the industry that have left families heartbroken. You may have seen the same. I know that many of you also read each day in the shipping news about horrific accidents. Those experiences and stories stay with us all. Our seafarers are also people. People like you and people like me, with families and children too. These seafarers work for us. They entrust their safety in us, and we need to look after them as if they were our family and our children. I know that every leader in shipping will want to improve the safety performance, but how do we do it? Shipping has many important industry groups, many ship owners and managers, and many related supporting businesses. But what became clear when speaking to those groups about safety is that something else needed to be done. Something that would bring all the various groups together. Something that would unite the shipping industry around safety and draw on the collective experience. So about 2 years ago, we formed a group called Together in Safety. Together in Safety is unique and comprises all of the shipping industry groups, including the International Chamber of Shipping, BIMCO, OCIMF, Intertanko, Intercargo, Interferry, Cruise Liners International, and the World Shipping Council. It also includes many shipping companies such as Carnival, GasLog, Euronav, Maersk, MSC, Shell, V-Ships, and also the UK P&I Club, Lloyd's Register, the Global Maritime Forum, and country representation through the Danish Maritime Council and Australian Maritime Safety Authority. Links have been established with the International Air Transport Association, IATA, and the Rail Standards and Safety Board, the RSSB, so that we can learn from air and rail industries. Together in Safety has developed a strategy centered around the core themes of leadership, accountability, training, and well-being and care. You can find out more on our website, togetherinsafety.info. Already on that website are many best practice guides that have been developed based on years of collective experience. Work is in progress to develop a data collection program to understand more deeply the underlying issues and develop corrective actions, which has been a key enabler to the improvements in safety in air and rail. We have a working group who are developing the safety aspects around the future fuels, such as hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol. And another area is in integrating the current initiatives around seafarer well-being and mental health and suicide to develop a single shipping approach. And we have much more planned and in progress. I am proud of the achievements of Together in Safety, and I'm excited about the continuing work that we will do in the future on the critical, important subject of safety. I believe that when we work together in the shipping industry, we can make huge strides. So I'm looking forward to working with you on this. I would encourage you and your organisations to come with us on this very, very special journey. Come and find out more about Together in Safety, how we can all work together, and what we can give back to make shipping safer, to ensure that safety is number one on everyone's agenda and always comes first.
Grahaeme, thank you very much for these truly inspiring remarks. And thank you for setting the stage. We are now going to proceed with our panel discussion. We have with us a terrific group of very senior industry participants who are all, as Grahaeme mentioned, key contributors to the Together in Safety initiative. And with that, I will turn it over to you. And thank you to all of you for being with us and contributing so much to the industry and also to today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you to you. Thank you to Capital Link for this opportunity, which we really relish. Welcome to this discussion, and a group of distinguished shipping industry leaders. All of them are participants in Together in Safety. Just very quickly to introduce them as Bud Darr from MSC, Andrew Taylor from the UK P&I Club, Sarah Waite from Shell, Grahaeme Westgarth from VGroup, and Paul Wogan from GasLog. Many thanks to you all for being here with us. And I'd like to get straight into the discussion, actually, and let's start. And if I could ask all of you, where is safety on the agenda in shipping today, and why is it there? And Grahaeme, can I go over to you first, please?
Sure. You know, I often reflect on the past, and it's a symptom of age, I think. But you know, I was at sea from 1971 to 1989, and the culture then was very much just get it done, just get things done. Whereas now, I think we've moved away from that, and safety is without doubt a priority in most shipping companies, and we have seen significant improvements because of that change in priority. What I would say, however, is that there's still much to do. We still see far too many repeat incidents in key activities, enclosed space entry, mooring, unmooring. So we're not finished here. There's still a lot of work for us all to do. You know, when I think of some of the challenges, I often there's a perceived challenges come across when due to unforeseen commercial issues that may arise. But I see that as an opportunity. That's an opportunity for leaders to really step up, because these are perceived conflicts, not real conflicts, as you pointed out in your video, Grahaeme. And it's an opportunity for leaders to step up and ensure priorities are clear. And then my final point, I think, is that, you know, we have there's so much nowadays on decarbonisation. So I am very, you know, pleased that we have a conference of this nature focused on operational excellence. But I do think I have an underlying concern that decarbonisation will take the focus away from safety as the #1 priority. And we do need to keep that in mind, and we need to be able to manage both. So just some high-level thoughts, and at that point, I'll pass over to you, Bud.
Well, thank you, Grahaeme. And I fully agree with your comments that we've seen significant improvements in safety, and also that although decarbonization is an enormous challenge that we all have to rise to meet, we should absolutely not let safety slip below the #1 spot in the agenda overall. And I think we need to do both at the same time, and particularly decarbonize safely, which I think is there's some legitimate issues to be addressed there. But although we've seen these improvements, and I agree, we can't rest on this. There's much work still to be done, and some of the areas are more obvious than others where that work rests. And the right level of safety, I don't think should ever be thought of as a destination. I think it's much better thought of as a continuous journey. And those that think that they've arrived at the right level of safety, I would argue, don't really understand the concept, because I believe the concept of safety has no such thing as perfection, and it has to be a system of continuous improvement and a mindset of continuous improvement. The importance of this should never be understated. If you think about it, when things are going well, you never get anywhere near the extra credit for the accidents that were prevented, or the value out of it in anyone else's eyes, than how greatly we suffer to a large degree for the accidents that do occur and we didn't prevent. High levels of safety, I don't think should ever be thought of as a goal. I think it needs to be more than that. I think it needs to be fundamental and part of our core, particularly in the type of business that we're all in. So thank you for the chance to comment. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Bud. In terms of my thoughts, I've had the luxury over the last 2 to 3 weeks of being able to engage with some 450 shipping companies. And I'm certainly getting a real sense from them that safety is still very much on their agenda. And of course, it's taken the direction at this time towards care for our people, well-being for our seafarers, very much from a COVID standpoint. And I think that's understandable, of course. I'm certainly observing a collective focus of safety through the lens of care within the industry right now. But I guess my worry is that I worry about how that level of care will be sustained when we return to normal, or when we find our new modus operandi. Will the industry maintain this high level of focus, or will it drop and become overtaken by maybe commercial pressures or operational procedures as the world gets back to normal? So I think as the world picks up pace and the COVID pressures remain, and Graeme, as you mentioned, as decarbonisation focus remains very strong, my thoughts is that we must be very mindful that safety doesn't fall down that list. And certainly, Bud, as you mentioned, safety needs to be part of who we are, not just something that we do because we have to, or because it's number one on our agenda. It has to be there and be part of our who we are. Andrew, good to see you and hear your thoughts as to where you are with this topic.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, from my perspective, from the UK Club's perspective, I can agree that that safety remains high on the agenda for most companies. I think that's clear, and I guess part of the question was what's driving that? What's the reason for that? And I think you already touched on a few of those things in the video, Graeme. I think there are some external drivers there. There are things like reputation. The world has changed, and protecting our reputation and protecting our brand is now paramount for most companies, and safety is a part of that. And it's important because it just affects the way that different stakeholders see us, whether it's our employees, or whether it's our customers or our lenders or investors, even our insurers, I might say. Safety plays a part, obviously, as to how we're seen, and so it becomes a business critical thing. And then I guess another external factor is the regulation. Again, various industry bodies and others over the years have made great strides. And I think as an industry, there's been good efforts at compliance and raising the bar of where we are with safety. But I don't think that can be our target. Our target can't be just the minimum. It must be higher than that. And so I think the mindset there is important. But they're the external points. But just also to follow on from what Sarah was saying, I think it's important not to lose the internal drives and the fact that the leadership around the industry really does want to promote safety and care for the individuals in the industry and the crew. So a couple of external features, but also an important internal one. Paul.
Thanks very much. I think for me, it's really good to know that we're all agreeing that safety is going to be high on the agenda of most shipping companies. But I would stress, I think it is most shipping companies. And I think we have some work still to do to make sure that it permeates throughout the whole industry. And that's where I like Together in Safety, because it actually is trying to bring the whole industry together to sort of make sure that we can have these high standards for everybody. I think for me, one of the big takeaways from the whole COVID situation has been generally the poor treatment of seafarers. You hear examples of seafarers who are ill on ships and are not allowed to go off and get treatment in hospital because people are worried about COVID. We just should not be treating humans that way. And I think it's easy to think about seafarers as a commodity, which is just dreadful. And your point, Graeme, in the opening remarks about these are people, these are human beings who we should have a duty of care for. So, we shouldn't be doing this because it's our customers want it. We shouldn't be doing this because legislation asks us to do it. We should be doing it because we really care for the people who work for us and who deliver the service into the rest of the world, delivering the goods. So I'm really pleased that we have safety high up there, but I still think we do have quite a lot of work to do.
Thanks everyone for those points. Certainly, picked up that safety remains high on the agenda, but it's as a lot of you said, it's a more complex world. That the pressures from decarbonisation agenda, not least also the pressures that have been brought on in terms of the last year. But as was very, very well reinforced by Paul there, these are people, they're our people, and they're people like us. And I think the other key thing for me is that the role that we all play, and I think a lot of the people listening today as leaders, everything we say, everything we ask for gets done. And I think that we need to take the right position within our companies and collectively in the industry to make sure that that what we want to get done and that key agenda item of safety is not lost. So that leads quite nicely on actually as to so all agreed on it remaining high and being important, but what do you see as the major barriers to improving the safety performance even further in shipping? And maybe Bud, over to you first of all to give us your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Graeme. And first off, I would just like to follow up on Paul's comments. I think we can't emphasize enough that we're not just talking about a resource like any other resource, and it is a critical resource for our industry. I mean, these are people. These are people that have, families just as we do, and in a lot of companies, the culture is they feel like family members. They deserve to be treated like family members. They deserve to be protected like family members. And I think it's incumbent on all of us as leaders in the sector to do our very best to make sure that they're protected and from a variety of perils, including some we could have never really anticipated because of the recent pandemic, as Paul pointed out. So to your point about barriers, I think the easier problems to solve are the ones that actually have technical solutions. Do I add an extra, layer of fire insulation? Do I add an extra fire monitor or an extra lifeboat or improve a lifeboat? Those are engineering solutions. And I think, although I don't want to underestimate the value that's provided through those processes, those are easier problems to solve. The genuinely hard problems are the ones that rely on how our people, and when I say that, I mean both shoreside and at sea, interact with our equipment and their operating environment. We sometimes, I think in our sector, because it is complex and it is somewhat diverse in how we operate and what our ships look like and the service they're on, we can be a bit too myopic in our views around particularly both the human factor impacts and also safety culture more broadly. And those are the hardest challenges to successfully address. And so I think it's to our benefit to think on a wider level. And I think we can learn a great deal by looking out beyond our own bridge windows and taking inspiration from others. Because when you think about the underlying human factors and safety culture elements that go into the pathology of any particular accident or the successful road to preventing accidents, we can really learn a lot from others. And I give some examples of the medical sector, nuclear, chemical, aviation, some of which Graeme mentioned a little bit in his opening remarks. But this is particularly poignant where the hardware may be much different in how it looks and feels and how it's designed, but the reliance on people in those sectors where it is an equal or greater challenge have a lot to offer. And I'll just give you one example. When I was leading a safety culture effort in the cruise industry some years ago in a prior job, I was really captivated by a medical safety expert we had come in and speak to us. And the amount of preventable medical errors that turn out to be fatal is such a fertile ground for improvement. And then as I listened to this expert describe how they had made improvements, largely what they were describing was the existing dynamic where, say, a thoracic surgeon walks into the operating suite and there may be 8 people on the team there, but everyone is so deferential to that thoracic surgeon that they don't speak up and properly support and act like a team and act like the safety of that patient is equally everyone's responsibility. And I thought, wow, that actually sounds a lot like the dynamic on, which is somewhat old school, but it still exists to some degree, of when the captain walks on a bridge. And if we think about that analogy, and you think about the consequence in the medical sector, there's some research in the US that says that there reasonably are over 250,000 medical error fatalities in the US alone on a given year. There's a lot to be gained there, and there is really, really good data for those that have made an effort to actually implement safety culture programs to try and break through these traditional barriers of how humans interact with each other and the equipment that they're trying to use in that case to save a human life. And so I just use that as one example. I came early in my career from the nuclear field, and there are numerous examples there of how we successfully address culture. And I think you can translate some of it. We're never going to be any of those other industries, and we shouldn't think that we are, but we can learn a lot from them, and vice versa. So with that, Sarah, I'd like to turn back to you and hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bud. I love your comment, Bud, around taking inspiration from others, and very much along similar lines. For me, I see the biggest opportunity that we have in the shipping industry is this ability to unite as one, and reap the benefits of scale that we have as an entire industry by developing and by sharing our best practices for all the industry to access. And the only barrier that I really see in the work that I do within the Together in Safety programme is our desire to come together as that one unit, working together for the greater good of our industry. And there is so much great work going on out there right now from a safety perspective, wonderful work taking place. But more often than not, what I'm finding is that it's kept within each individual sector within the industry, really with only that single sector having the benefit. And yet many of our safety challenges, many of our safety learnings transverse across all of these sectors. So for me, I think this is really where our biggest win lies. This is the biggest win that we have, but equally it's the biggest barrier that I see preventing us at this moment in time. Andrew, over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I was thinking on what Graeme said at the start about looking back into history, and actually, of course, there have been large numbers of safety improvements over a long period of time. So it's quite an interesting question as to what would stop us from continuing that. And to me, it sort of feels twofold. One is how do we continue with the improvements that we see? And then secondly, on Sarah's point, how do we ensure that they're spread out to the widest possible group of people? How do we kind of get everybody involved? And I guess that first question, to some extent, does come down to ensuring that we maintain a full focus on safety, and it does remain our number one priority, because we are in a world where the priorities that are facing us just seem to explode on a day-by-day basis, and we're always looking at new issues and new problems. I guess some are as old as the hills. How do we operate efficiently, and how can we justify further costs? And that will always be a question. And some of them are very new, and we've already talked about the sustainability and environmental concerns and new fuels and how we're going to operate going forward. And some of those things, of course, aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. Some of the environmental concerns have a direct play into safety. If we can run safe ships and avoid incidents, then that can only be good for our environmental credentials, and particularly how we protect the oceans, of course. So they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but I do think it means that we have to be very deliberate about holding safety as our key objective and our number one priority, because if not, it could easily be overwhelmed by all the other things that are going on. So I think we do need to be quite deliberate. And then the second side about that spreading, it kind of picks up what Sarah was just talking about. But I think there's a risk that we simply don't collaborate as much as perhaps we could. And we just don't share the information that we could. So we do see the safety improvements, but if they are just limited to a sector or to an area or whatever it might be, then we're not getting the full benefit from it. And the question then is, how can we ensure that we do share that best practice, or share the lessons that we've learned from incidents that we have seen, or share the information and the data that would help us better understand the kind of things that could go wrong, or indeed the indicators that something might be about to go wrong, and also how do we respond to that. And it's those sort of areas of collaboration that I think are the key to ensuring that as the wider group as possible, we can ensure that we're all moving up that safety bar all of the time. And if we can bring together the different perspectives and the different information, it's just a matter of how we then share that knowledge and experience and bring it out for the benefit for all. And I think Bud's point was a very interesting one as well, about that's just within the shipping industry, but then how about when we bring in the other industries? How about when we bring in, okay, different technologies, but it's still people reacting to difficulties in a short space of time in the same way that we are across all industries. And so how do we bring that kind of human element and experience of different industries into our thinking as well? So yeah, two thoughts of being very deliberate about our safety goal, and then collaboration.
Thank you, Andrew, Sarah, Bud. Some really great points there. Very much around this working together as one unit. How do we collaborate? Maybe not something we do so well in shipping. Maybe other industries do better. And then moving on to that, this thing, as Bud had mentioned, about learning from others. How do we do some of these things, and what are the main priorities? And then, as Andrew had mentioned, these competing priorities that we've got. How do we get focus and really drive this forward? So some great points there, and that leads nicely on into the next question that I've got. Is really looking at what's changed in safety over the last 10 years, and as a result of that, and as is mentioned by the whole panel so far, is where should we focus to drive improvement? So maybe Paul, to get your thoughts on this one to start.
Yeah, thank you. I think sort of rather than taking the first bit of the question on a technical level, more on a philosophical level, without a doubt, safety has moved up the agenda for the vast majority of shipping companies. But I think, as I talked about previously, that it is the majority, but there are still some, I think, outliers there. So how do we get that sort of view throughout the whole through the whole of shipping? Because there definitely is still room for improvement, without a doubt. But I do think there's been an inherent mind shift as well, which has gone away from the fact that, shipping's a naturally dangerous business where accidents are going to happen. If you just accept it, you try and keep them down, to one where I think everyone's striving to have zero accidents. And I think that mindset and that mind shift is really important, because, that acceptance that accidents will happen, was, I think, a real bane on our industry. But as you said, Graeme, in the opening, we still have one of the worst safety records of any industry. We can't get away from that. So, we have to continually find ways, taking the second part of your question, how do we go forward from here? What is it that we're going to do to make those improvements? I think one of the first things I would talk about, and I know it's something that, is Together in Safety and the Partners in Safety, which Shell drove originally, was around leadership and leadership in safety. And I think that's something that, we've taken on board very much. In fact, when Graeme Westgarth was working at GasLog, he introduced Take the Lead, which was our safety program. And it was all about leadership in safety, not only from senior management, but throughout the organization. And it goes back to what Bud was talking about in the operating room, where everybody should feel that they're a leader in safety and be able to challenge that surgeon. They should be able to challenge the master on safety, because we all have to take responsibility for our co-workers and take leadership in safety. So I think that movement towards leadership is really important.
And I think the second thing that we can do better is think about mental health. The other point you made in the opening, Graeme, was around the suicide rates of seafarers, how high it is, and understand some of the pressures which our seafarers are working under. And, you know, most accidents happen because some element of human, mismanagement or whatever. If you have seafarers who are not mentally alert, mentally on their game, who have got concerns, who are feeling depressed or suicidal, you're going to have accidents. So a real focus, I think, on the mental health of our seafarers. And, it's great. In recent years, we're much more happy to talk about mental health. People are much more happy to reach out for help with mental health. And I think if we can start to address some of that issue, I think that's really going to help us as well in terms of getting the safety record of the industry better, and preventing accidents. So I think, Graeme, what are your thoughts?
Graeme,
you're on mute, Graeme.
Don't worry.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for recollecting Take the Lead. I hope it still exists. So if I think a little bit about what's changed over the last 10 years, I think there's, first of all, society's changed. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And what was accepted 10 years ago is not acceptable today. And but I think there's also been some more institutional factors around shipping. OCIMP, I think, have really worked hard at setting standards in the tanker industry, and I think that mantle has been taken on board by the various the various industry organisations, many of, or if not all of whom are involved together in safety, really developing best practice and becoming more and encouraging the members to become more and more proactive. I think the legislation, we've seen the IMO, bring in legislation, and you can argue about the effectiveness or the speed of execution of IMO, but ultimately it certainly played a part in moving the industry forward and the safety agenda. So, and I think the final point on that is that there is definitely more leadership and understanding and involvement, and to the point you made, Graeme, is recognition that safety is good business. So I think that's becoming more and more prevalent and relevant, I think. But if I think about going forward and where we need to focus, and it was really encouraging to hear all of the discussion about seafarers. But the reality is we live in a very, very complex world, and the shipping environment isn't immune to that. And in fact, you could argue that it's even more exposed than other industries. And that's resulted in, I think, more and more demands from our seafarers, to a degree where sometimes I feel that under certain circumstances, they must feel overwhelmed. And just to give you an example, I don't know how many incident reports I've read where a root cause is failure to follow procedures. And then you say, well, how many procedures are there? Oh, well, there are 650. So could any of us remember 650? It's an arbitrary number I've just made up, but could any of us, but I'm guessing it wouldn't be too far from the truth. Could any of us remember 650 procedures? But that's been the result of the legislation, the requirements that have been developed over the years, all in the best interests and all by very professional, dedicated, committed people. But somehow I think that we need to find a way to make our seafarers' life simpler. We need to find that path that allows them to execute their job in a way that they don't feel overburdened by the if you like, the peripheral requirements that have been imposed upon them, but they actually feel that the material or the support they're getting helps them do their job safely and effectively. And of course, we also need to provide an environment where they understand that, and they understand that they will be fully supported by the company that sits behind them. And I really think that this is where Together in Safety can help, and it's certainly, I think, an agenda item that we need to continue to push forward. So I think, Graeme, it's probably back to you now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul and Graeme, for those insights. Really picked up this importance of leadership, which you also mentioned earlier, and that if the leader in the organisation can really permeate through this, the importance of safety, and that, then it really does matter. And then this thing about simplicity, things getting more and more complicated. I mean, how many times are there incidents, and the result of the incident is to add more procedures, as you say. But coming back to that is this mental health aspect, the pressures, and how much are those incidents actually the result of mental health type related aspects, and really understanding much more why do people do what they do. So some good things there, which also we can pick up in Together in Safety. And then just on Together in Safety, what role do you see the group, the industry group that has been formed and is really driving forward? What role do you see it can play to improve the safety performance in shipping? And maybe we'll move to each of our panel members, because I know they're very passionate, like I am, around Together in Safety. And maybe Andrew, start with you.
Thanks, Graeme. Yeah, it's been an interesting conversation around the various questions, hasn't it? And actually thinking back to that barriers question, I think that the point around how do we keep safety as being very high in our agenda, and how do we ensure that focus on safety was kind of one area. But then Sarah brought out that need for collaboration across the industry to make sure that we can ensure that things are pushed to everybody, and all the best practices shared, and so on. And I think that that's what Together in Safety is all about. It's all about ensuring that best practice and new ideas and fresh information and so on is shared collaboratively around the industry as a whole, and it also helps that focus on safety by bringing us back to that every time. It also helps a little bit with the cost barriers, because there's so much information now available, and it's easy to get hold of, and can help with that as well. So I think it's really a unique forum. It's got all those bodies on that you mentioned in the video, which is completely unique and completely focused on safety issues. And I think it is the breadth of that forum, and the number of people involved that make it what it is. So I see Together in Safety as a way of leaping over some of those barriers that we talked about earlier on, and moving forward, all of us together as an industry. And it's strong already. There's lots of people involved, lots of strong support. But actually, I think the effectiveness will only grow the more that come in, because the more people that can be involved, the better, and it just enables that even broader sharing of ideas and views. So I really do see it as an opportunity to get involved and leap over some of those things that may prevent us from ensuring a safer future. Perhaps I'll move to Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think the fact that probably we're all here today, kind of almost representing Together in Safety, tells you all you need to know about how important we think it is and how good. I mean, I just think it has a huge part to play. It's the first time I've been involved in 30 odd years in shipping in safety discussions with peers from other sectors of the industry. And I love the fact that I get a different perspective, and I get a different point of view. So, really great that it's broken down some of those barriers, which I think are false barriers within shipping, and actually bringing people together on a really important topic. And that idea of getting to one safety standard in shipping is one that I think is crucially important for everyone. And I think to the example of the airline industry, in the airline industry, it's required that you report your incidents, you share your accidents, you share your learning. Everybody learns from it. Everybody takes it on board and makes sure that doesn't happen again. And it isn't. in shipping. You don't have to necessarily report incidents or share the information. And my question is, why not? Why the hell don't we do that? Because we can all benefit from doing it. And Together in Safety, I think, is pushing that way. And it's starting to be a platform where we can actually start to make people change their mindset towards, let's not hide these things. Let's get them out in the open and let's learn from them. They're not there to beat us with a stick. They're there to learn from as we go forward. So I think a pan shipping platform like Together in Safety, pushing forward towards that openness and that sharing of information, best practice, and the learning that comes from it is crucially important. And so with that, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. And I'm going to ask for the liberty here, Paul, of taking off my shell hat and putting on my Together in Safety program manager hat here, because this is when I get animated and come alive. This is I love this bit. You know, Together in Safety, I feel, can play a crucial role in bringing the industry together. You heard me earlier about this need to unite as one, and certainly I see Together in Safety as a wonderful platform to do that, with that strong focus on safety leadership, accountability, and collaboration. I know that through Together in Safety, there are already a number of safety best practices that are readily available. And remember, these are free to access as well to every single in-person, every single company, every single individual involved in the shipping industry. And these best practices include anything from safety leadership behaviors, key safety golden rules, safety learning and training tools, the well-being and the mental health resources that we spoke about so much today, and also through to your point earlier, Paul, this need to capture information, and there is a free incident data capture platform that is available through Together in Safety. And I strongly believe that by openly sharing all of these wonderful resources, so that any shipping company, big or small, can freely access these materials, that's where I do believe that we have the ability as leaders to make such a real difference to the safety of our people in shipping, and ultimately to the waters that we all share. So you can hear my passion, you can hear my energy about this, and we've got a number of best practices available. We need more. There's so much out there that we still don't know about, that we as Together in Safety are looking to bring in, so that we can then promote it and share it out to everybody so that everyone has access. Grahaeme, I know you share this energy with me because we've been together in our Together in Safety journey since the very beginning. So love to hear your thoughts. I think you're on mute again, Grahaeme.
I'm not good at this. There's a little banner came up and said we only have, I think, about 2 minutes left. So I'll do this in 30 seconds, actually. And it's easy because really much of what I believe in is already being said. But if I had to have 3 headlines, they would be, it's a platform that allows us to develop best practices across the industry in a standard way. And underpinning that, hopefully we can develop some what I would call simplified safety processes that can be made available to our seafarers and make their life a little easier. I think it's a forum for sharing best practices, and I think that does that very well. And I think also it's a conduit to interact with other industries as one body as opposed to disparate bodies, because I think Bud said it very well. We have a real opportunity to learn from other industries. And that's my 30 seconds.
Well, I think that just leaves me. So first of all, if you hear the passion from Sarah, you could tell that she's been somewhat of a protege of Grahaeme Henderson, who I would never want to compete with Grahaeme Henderson on passion. And I'm so pleased that he's taken up this cause, because it's easy to be joining him and Sarah on this journey because it's so important. A couple of quick comments for me is I think that through Together in Safety, we can add particular value on emphasizing safety culture and human factors. Again, those are the real hard things and probably require a lot of collaboration to figure out how the people interact with the environment and equipment is really the key to that. And I think that there's a genuine value collaborating both in ideas and in making available tangible, practical, and timely information products to help both ship owners and seafarers in their efforts to continue to reduce safety risks. And it's a journey I'm really happy to be on. It's an organization that I'm pleased to be a part of and fully support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. A really wonderful discussion, very rich discussion, some great points there. Just huge thank you, and let's hand back to Nicholas. We're spot on time. Thanks, everybody.
Well, a very big thank you from me as well. And clearly there can be no shipping without safety. And congratulations to all of you for spearheading this effort. And of course, Captain Link is gratified, grateful to be able to contribute any way we can to support your passion, your mission, and your objectives. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you.